Okay, it is 1 o'clock, but just in case the interested parties are a little bit late, we'll give it another minute or two, and then we'll resume. It wouldn't be unheard of. Okay, we'll resume then. Now I have before me a list of the 27 conditions recommended by the council. Can I ask that the appellant advise as we go through whether they wish to comment on any of the proposed conditions? Otherwise, if anyone else wishes to comment, please do raise your hand. Beginning with the first condition then, can I ask that the council please explain why these conditions are considered to be necessary, relevant to planning, relevant to the development to be permitted, enforceable, precise and reasonable in all other respects, please.
Would you just like me to go through them one by one, sir?
Please.
So the first condition is a fairly standard condition around the approved drawings. That is applied to make sure that the development comes forward in the way that it was intended, if approved. I went through those drawing numbers earlier when you read out the list of drawings that we were discussing, so I can confirm that those are the correct drawings. And I think without that, without that condition, there might be doubt about how the development should come forward. So I think that's why I would say it's necessary. And I think based on those drawings, it's sufficiently precise.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
So condition number 2 is timescale for implementation. Again, a fairly standard condition. You will note that we have put a condition on for the development to be commenced within 2 years of the date of approval. Just looking at it now, that condition actually refers to reserved matters. So I apologise for that. So it should be a condition which just finishes that it's commenced within 2 years. So would you be prepared to let me delete the following section on that condition? It's just been copied in incorrectly.
The reference to reserved matters.
The reference to reserved matters, yeah.
Okay. And what's the justification for 2 years?
So the 2 years goes back to 3 or 4 years now to an agreement that the planning manager and the chair of planning committee reached, which was to apply shorter timescales for implementation to permissions for more than one dwelling. So that is under section 91 of the TCPA, which sets out that the relevant time limit for implementation would be 3 years or such other period as the local planning authority may impose. And the reason for doing that was to try to speed up delivery of planning permissions.
Thank you. Any comment from the appellant on that condition, please?
Would you just be prepared to give me a minute, sir, just so that I can bring up my original, document around this? Thank you. Thank you for your patience, sir. So if you're happy for me to move on to condition 3, that was a condition which was requested by the council's scientific officer in respect of the potential for contamination on the site. I think that was on the basis that section 6 of the application form indicated that the proposed use would be particularly vulnerable to presence of contamination, and that contamination or any contamination of the site, including those buildings and the surrounds on the site, had not been submitted, and therefore our scientific officer felt that further investigation of contamination would be necessary. So that is condition 3. I won't jump ahead to the other condition. So that's just a condition requiring some site investigation into the potential presence of contamination to ensure the safe delivery of the site.
Okay, and condition 4, please.
So condition 4 is a pre-commencement condition relating to the submission of a construction environmental management plan. I think particularly in respect of neighbouring houses, the access point onto Main Street for construction traffic. We felt it was necessary for the applicant to submit further details of arrangements relating to construction prior to commencement, just to ensure that the impact on neighbours was limited during construction.
Okay. And condition 5.
Thank you. Condition 5 relates to a requirement for a scheme of archaeological works on the site. That was on the basis of the consultation response from Cambridgeshire Archaeology, which noted the archaeological potential of the site, and whilst not objecting to the development on the basis of its potential impacts on archaeology, they did request that, well, their objection was, their lack of objection was on the basis that there was a pre-commencement scheme of archaeology undertaken on the site. And that condition is a standard one that they recommend.
Thank you.
Again, a pre-commencement condition for surface and foul water drainage. Those details weren't submitted as part of the application, so to ensure proper drainage of the site, we would seek to apply that condition.
Okay, thank you.
Condition 7 would require that an energy and sustainability strategy for the development is submitted to the council, which would outline any renewable energy technologies, energy efficiency measures. That is to meet the aims of policy EMB4. And it's fair to note that this scheme is at the lower end of the sort of scale of scheme where we normally expect that to be demonstrated via such a strategy. The threshold is usually 5 houses, so it's right at the lower threshold of that. But again, that was applied to ensure that the development meets with an adopted policy EMB4.
Thank you.
So condition 8, as part of the amended proposals to address the local highways authority's concerns around the access point, the plans were amended to remove a section of the wall on the frontage, and that was shown in plan form, but I think we felt it would be appropriate to have a more detailed scheme for quite how that was going to be carried out in respect of the widening works and then making good of the boundary wall there. It is it's a wall of, our conservation officer has taken the view that it's not that the wall is not part of the listed curtilage, and therefore there's no consent required for the works, but it is a wall of some age with, which makes, some contribution to that frontage. So I think we felt it was important to ensure that that work was done in accordance with an agreed scheme.
Okay, and condition 9, please.
So condition 9 would require that the development is carried out in accordance with the approved tree information that you can see listed there, in essence, to ensure that the development, both in terms of carrying out the development and in the long term, doesn't have any significant impact on trees on site.
Thank you.
Condition 10 was requested by our environmental health team. Again, similar reasons for the request for the camp that I discussed earlier, just to ensure that the construction period is not unduly impactful on residential neighbours of the site.
Okay, and condition 11, please.
Condition 11 would only apply in the event that piled foundations were required for the development. And in that instance, again, our environmental health officer has requested that details of the piling scheme and any mitigation measures that would be employed to ensure that there was no impact on neighbours during the construction period was submitted prior to that piling taking place.
Okay. Condition 12.
So condition 12 is kind of follows on from the condition we touched on earlier as far as contamination is concerned. Was requested by our scientific officer just to ensure that were any other contamination to be encountered during construction, that the appropriate measures to remediate, or cease work and remediate, would be implemented. And then any further necessary remediation undertaken, again, just with regard to safe construction and safe habitation.
Thank you.
So condition 13, a fairly standard condition for a scheme of soft landscaping. Don't think we've seen a detailed scheme of soft landscaping yet, and obviously the site has got some boundaries both with the conservation area and the continuing into the countryside behind. So we felt that it was important that the site was greened up, and that condition would achieve that.
Thank you. Condition 14, please.
Similarly, for condition 14, we'd requested details of hard landscaping. There is a drawing which shows some hard landscaping proposals. I don't think it covered absolutely everything, and I think when I was drafting these conditions, I thought it would be useful potentially to see samples of those materials. So, albeit there are some shown on one of the drawings that would be approved under condition 1, I felt it was necessary really to see full details of the hard landscaping materials, and yeah, I think there was a couple of areas that weren't covered.
Thank you. Condition 15, please.
Again, similarly to the landscaping conditions, just a condition requiring the submission of details of boundary treatments. Again, I think there are some shown on that plan that I just referenced, but not all of them. And again, given the boundaries with the conservation area and and to the rear of the site with the countryside, I think we felt it was necessary to get full details of those boundary treatments to ensure an acceptable impact.
And condition 16, please.
Again, quite a standard condition for the submission of materials to be used in the construction of the development, including fenestration details and external materials. Felt that was necessary given the relative sensitivity of the site and the lack of details on materials in the application, that we would want to ensure high quality materials were used and high quality finish achieved across the scheme.
Thank you. Condition 17, please.
So condition 17 requires the provision and ongoing maintenance free of obstruction of the both the pedestrian and the inter-vehicle visibility displays that would be created at the access to the site. So that's just to see the access would be widened to achieve adequate visibility, and that condition just seeks to ensure that it's provided in the long term in perpetuity. For the reason given in the interest of highway safety.
And number 18, please.
Yeah, so 18 just requires the implementation of the access and its retention free from any obstruction. Obviously, the Highways Authority was of the view that a widened access needed to be implemented in order to make the scheme acceptable in highway safety terms. That condition would secure that.
Thank you. Condition 19.
And that condition kind of follows on, so that relates to the internal access road and the provision of garages, parking, turning areas to firstly ensure acceptable level of parking is provided, and then turning and access to ensure an acceptable highway safety impact. I think I, from recollection, distinguished those conditions partly because I think there might be a small discrepancy on one of the plans between two plans, and I was trying to get a condition which would or include a plan which was the one that we actually wanted to be built out. Could potentially get into that if you need any more detail about that, but I think that's why there's condition 18 and 19 as opposed to just one across the scheme.
What was the nature of the discrepancy that you identified?
I think it's possibly that one of the drawings hadn't been updated to show the widened access on the frontage, and that the applicant at the time had provided an additional drawing which showed it, as opposed to fully updating all of the drawings as far as the widened access element was concerned.
Okay. Thank you.
So condition 20 would require the provision of secure cycle parking stalls. That's a requirement of local plan policy COM8 in terms of driving at sustainability, really, sustainable travel. The plan that's referenced there shows cycle parking stores in elevation and in plan form and location on the site. So just securing their provision and retention in accordance with that policy.
And 21, please.
That's a sort of similar condition in respect of the bin stores that are shown on that same drawing, just to try to prevent, or to try and secure the provision of the bin stores to prevent a situation where they're not provided and then there are bins out more visibly, given the sort of sensitivity of the site, to secure a kind of tidy and high quality development.
Thank you. Condition 22, please.
So that relates to the submission of a scheme for biodiversity improvements in accordance with primarily policy EMB7 of the local plan, which seeks to secure a net gain in biodiversity on development sites. Wasn't any enhancement proposed as part of the application, so we felt the need to secure that by condition.
Thank you. And condition 23, please.
And that one relates to the obscure glazing of the rear-facing first floor windows on the two-storey dwellings which back onto the neighbouring properties on School Lane. You heard earlier in the hearing from the charity that owns those about concern, not just with respect to overlooking, but partly in respect of overlooking, and in order to mitigate what we considered would be unacceptable overlooking of those properties, we feel that the windows as set out there and the roof windows as set out ought to be obscurely glazed.
Okay, thank you. 24, please.
So condition 24 is, I suppose, the other side of that coin, which is that no new windows are inserted at first floor level or above in those same elevations of those same houses for the same reason.
Condition 25, please.
So that's a removal of permitted development rights condition, which would apply across the site in respect of classes A and B of part 1 of schedule 2 of permitted development order, which relate to extensions and roof extensions. Again, I think given the sensitivity of the site, the fact that a high quality sort of scheme was negotiated and the potential for unrestricted extension under permitted development rights to impact on that in that particular location, as well as the potential for additional extension to impact on neighbour amenity. Again, I think in respect of those same plots and those same neighbours, we felt that permitted development rights ought to be removed. So that's kind of dual purpose, I suppose, to safeguard residential amenity and character and appearance of the conservation area.
Thank you. Condition 26, please.
So that's a condition aimed at ensuring the ongoing use or availability of those garages on the 4 plots mentioned for the parking of cars. The layout of the site is such that only plot 1 has 2 driveway spaces. The other 4 plots have a driveway and a garage space. Whilst that's acceptable in our view as an arrangement, our parking policy comment requires that 2 spaces are provided for each dwelling. And obviously, where you have garage spaces, it's possible to convert those to habitable accommodation, often under permitted development rights. So it's just a case of trying to secure those, secure that on-site parking provision going forward.
And finally, condition 27, please.
And that condition is one which is requested by the Local Highways Authority to ensure that there's no gating or obstruction of the access road or parking and turning areas to ensure their ongoing accessibility and in the interest of highway safety.
Thank you. Did the appellants have any comments on those proposed conditions?
No.
Any other comments on conditions? No? Thank you. Are there any applications of costs?
I think whilst it has been a frustrating and time-consuming exercise attempting to establish the appellant's position in respect of whether or not the appellant thinks the tilted balance applies or not, we think on a pragmatic basis and not to waste any further time of any party, the council has decided not to apply for costs. But of course, you are entitled to reach your own decision on that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the appellant? No. Thank you. Very well then, turning to arrangements for the site visits, would it be yourself attending for the appellant? Thank you. Thank you. And for the council?
Yes, I'll attend that, so on behalf of the council.
Thank you. And no? Okay, thank you. Okay, where is the best place to park?
Probably the recreation.
Is that the other end of School Lane?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big tall car park
Okay.
at the top of School Lane.
If that's accessible, I think that's closest.
On
isn't it?
the corner there.
Yeah, just behind the village hall.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and if we say 2 o'clock to meet on site, is that sufficient time? Okay. Just a reminder then that the purpose is for me to see the site rather than hear any discussions. We'll be closing the hearing here. If you want to point out any physical features on the site or in the surrounding area, that's absolutely fine, but I can't hear